Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night Learning. Last week, we observed Yom HaShoah. It is remarkable that following the liberation from the camps and the revelation of the unspeakable and unimaginable horrors that occurred throughout Nazi-occupied Europe, there was, within the Jewish world, an eerie reluctance to discuss the topic. Jewish children who grew up in the immediacy of the Holocaust's long shadow sometimes ask their parents why some new Jewish residents, be it in Israel, New York, or Montreal, had numbers tattooed on their arms. For the most part, this question went unanswered. Whatever these children may have been told by their parents, the hush with which it was conveyed signaled that they should not pursue the topic any further. This reticence typified the post-war Jewish response to the Holocaust. But this changed in April 1961, 16 years after liberation, with the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem for crimes against the Jewish people and against humanity. The floodgates opened. Each family has its own unique narrative. We will hear a powerful one this evening. It gives me great pleasure to call upon Natasha Hall, a host of CJAD 800, to introduce tonight's speaker, Tommy Schnurmacher. Natasha has a brand new show, Montreal Now, which she co-hosts with Aaron Rand, Monday to Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. Natasha mentioned to me that a highlight of her career was working with Tommy. Natasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Louis. Good evening to you all. I'm so glad you're here on this absolutely beautiful evening, and I'm even more excited for you to hear the stories that are going to be told tonight. I'm absolutely honored to have been asked to introduce Tommy Schnurmacher, and I was thinking about how Tommy is really one of those rare people who almost needs no introduction. You know what I mean? Certainly not for Montrealers anyways. If you're a Montrealer, you know Tommy. He's an icon in this town. If you're Anglo, Franco, no matter your religion, your political leanings, chances are you know Tommy. And while he's done so many different things, like being a gossip columnist, a legendary talk show host, even a fortune teller, I would say the thing that he is most known for, and certainly most beloved for, is his storytelling. Tommy was a storyteller for the ages. His stories, and I've heard them many, many times, and never too many times, though I will say, his stories are the kind of stories that stay with you. So you'll find yourself cooking dinner or maybe taking a walk, and a moment that he described so eloquently, so perfectly, will come back to you. Tommy's stories stay with you. And once you hear him tell some of these stories himself, even better, you'll also hear his voice. And then perhaps it'll make you laugh, or it might make you shed a tear. Tommy really has that unique talent of being able to make people laugh and cry at the same time with his poignant words. So much going on in his words. Tommy is a dear friend. So I was thinking, what can I tell you that you might not know about Tommy? When I say that he's a dear friend, he really takes that role seriously. Tommy is someone you can count on. He's someone who gives absolutely great advice. So when I started at CJAD 800, and I was really nervous to meet Tommy, actually, I shouldn't have been. He's just the most amazing person. When I started, he saw that I was a little bit nervous and trying really hard in my role. And he was like, stop worrying about people liking you. The less they like you, the more they'll listen. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? But as usual, Tommy was right. Oh, so right. Okay, what else might you not know? I think you might not know that Tommy is an excellent dancer, like truly excellent. Tommy commands the dance floor the same way that he commanded the microphone as a talk show host, the same way he commands a room when he tells a story, even if it's a virtual room. He is a storyteller for the ages. So sadly, I never had the pleasure of meeting Tommy's mother, but I feel like I knew her, and you will too. If you have read his wonderful book, Makeup Tips from Auschwitz, How Vanity Saved My Mother's Life, well, then you already know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't read it, well, what the heck are you waiting for? You got to read it. It is available at all of your favorite bookstores and, of course, on Amazon. So here we go. Tonight you are in for a treat. Tommy is here to regale you with stories from his life, from his mother's life, stories of devotion, of hardship, and above all, love of a son for a mother. I also want to let you know that there will be a question period right after the talk, so make sure you stick around for that. And with that, I'm going to leave you with one of the absolute best storytellers of our time, the man, the myth, the legend, Tommy Schnurmacher.
Thank you very much. I don't know. I don't know what to say after a spectacular introduction like that. That of course is the I don't know why the host has stopped my. Oh, there she is. Good. Okay, they restarted it, which is a good idea. The lovely Natasha Hall is unbelievable. I listen to her every day between 2 and 6 o'clock on CJAD radio. She looks just like Rosamund Pike, a bit of Laura Dern. She could be in movies. She could be in anything she likes. She's personable. She's witty. She's funny. She's talented. And she has 1,000 stories of her own. She is a great lady. Now, it is a great pleasure for me to be here, to be speaking to the Shar Shemayim. This, in case you see me lift this on occasion, this is not, do not think that this is a drink or alcohol or anything like that. This is webinar fuel. It helps the webinar keep going, and it's environmentally friendly. Now, I said it's an honor for me to speaking at the Shar. I've spoken at the Shar, and I have a story about Mom and the Shar that I'll get to a little bit later. But people often ask me, what made you write this book in the first place? And if you're a Montrealer and you listen to CJD, you'll understand the answer. When I was on CJD years ago and Gord Sinclair was there, I'm sure many of you remember Gord Sinclair, during the commercial breaks, and there are plenty of commercials on CJD, during the commercial break, I would tell stories about my family to Gord Sinclair. And he said to me, Tommy, one of these days, you're going to have to write a book about these stories. And I said, Gord, one of these days I will do it. And one of these days I did. And that is the result. The book is the result of that. Now, when I was speaking about the book about a year ago, it was at a synagogue. And the rabbi was going to introduce me. And prior to the rabbi coming on, a gentleman came on from the synagogue, one of the organizers of the synagogue. It was just before the high holidays. And he said, thank you for coming. And we don't want to remind you that it's important for you to join the synagogue. I know you may think that, the membership is expensive for 3 days, but we're here for you 365 days. And you should buy membership. And he was encouraging people to come to the high holiday services and to become a member of the synagogue. As he was saying that, I changed the beginning of my presentation because it reminded me of a story with my mother. Now, my father, Olav Shalom, was a rabbi, and he had a little shtibel, a little Hungarian synagogue. And it was my mother who was in charge of the reservations for the tickets. I remember she had these big cardboard, 6 little cardboard posters divided evenly into little squares. And in each square, Mrs. Goldstein, Mrs. Schaefer, whatever the names were, she would put those names in. And I remember seeing those on the kitchen table as she would make the reservation. So people would call her and they'd reserve tickets for the high holidays in my father's little shtibel, in his little Hungarian synagogue, a synagogue primarily for the people who immigrated to Montreal from Hungary. So one day she gets a phone call. Hello, Mrs. Schnurmacher. I would like to buy a ticket for the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur service, but you know what? I don't want to come for the whole thing all day long. I want to come just for the Yizkor. I want to come just for the Yizkor. If I come just for the Yizkor, how much is the ticket? So my mother responds, before I answer you about the ticket, I want to tell you, you know what movie I love? I love the movie Cleopatra. You know why I love this movie so much? I love this movie. It's so romantic. My favorite part of the movie is the kissing scene when Richard Burton is kissing Elizabeth Taylor. They're so much in love. I love that scene. If I want to watch just that scene and I go to the Van Horn movie theater just for the laugh scene, then how much is the ticket? The ticket is the same price. So that was a story that uh, occurred to me as I was about to make the presentation. Now, my book tells a story of how my mother got two infamous Nazis to save her life, but it's really more about the impact that had on our relationship. Uh, I wanted to, as a child, I wanted to undo the Holocaust. I want to undo it. Of course, you can't undo it, but as a child, you think you can. You become very protective. You become very protective of your mother. My mother's very overprotective of me. I'm overprotective of her. That's part of the second generation story. Uh, my mother told me the story when I was very young about what happened to her when I asked why I didn't have grandparents, and uh, she explained to me what the Holocaust was, and I was like in utter shock. And she told me one day she was walking with her sister in a not far in a little shtetl not far from Debrecen in Hungary, and the two sisters were saying that they're bored, not much interesting is happening to them. And a few weeks later, they found themselves, they're deported, and they found themselves on a cattle car hurtling towards Auschwitz. Now, when I tell the story about, she was taken by this train to Auschwitz, when you tell it to younger people, many of them think train, they're thinking, well, the Via train, like you take the train to Toronto, or where you used to take the train to New York. No. I tell them, no. Don't think, when you think train, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about no seats. We're talking about a cattle car. We're talking about no bathroom. We're talking about no food. We're talking about no air conditioning. We're talking about no bathroom for a day, 2 days, sometimes 3 days before they got there. An absolute, utter, total horror before you even arrived there, before you even got there. So my mother was on this cattle car, and she arrives in Auschwitz, the death camp of Auschwitz. And she's young. She can leap off the train. She jumps off the train. And there on one side is a table. Seated at the table, a man in a white coat. That is Dr. Joseph Mengele. He's going to be the first the first Nazi to save her life. Instead of telling her to go to the left of the gas chamber, he tells her to go to the right, which is the forced labor. Now, when she got there to the camp, get this, think of this mindset, this very, very important. My mother was given the uniform like everyone else was given that uniform. Guess what? She didn't like it. She didn't like the way it fit. Seriously, she didn't like the way it fit. It should fit better. So what did she do? She exchanged her meager daily ration of bread, moldy bread, exchanged it for needle and thread, and she sewed up the outfit so that it fit properly, so that it fit better. She took the swill that they served as black coffee. Instead of drinking it, she used it to polish her shoes and pinched her cheeks to look red. And this is pride. It was pride, right? It was vanity. That's why the unusual title of the book, Makeup Tips from Auschwitz, How Vanity Saved My Mother's Life. It was an issue of vanity. But you know what kind of vanity we're talking about? She felt the Nazis were telling her, you're a Jew, you're nothing, you're nobody, you count for nothing. And my mother, in her way, was saying, not true, I am somebody, I do matter, I have dignity, I do count, I want to still look my best no matter where I am. It was her response, what she could do of it, to the Nazis. So what happens? They tell her she shouldn't, do anything to single herself out like that. Irma Greza, on whom they patterned the character Ilse She-Wolf of the SS. She's the one who's doing the morning roll call. And she says, you, points at my mother, she's you out of the line. My mother gets out of the line, And how did a Jew manage to look so clean in a place like this? My mother tells her the truth. She tells her what she did. And Graza says, well, in that case, you're clean enough to work for me. My mother became her chichkash, her assistant, her valet. She tended to clean her bicycle, tended to her garden, cleaned her boots, did the gardening, whatever, all of those things, and became like her sort of servant or assistant, and that's how she saved her life. As a matter of fact, Grace also told her, "Your parents are how old are your parents?" She told her, "Your parents are dead; they're gone." Did you have brothers and sisters? She told me. She says, "Well, your sister may be alive." She looked it up. Her sister was working in the Canada section of Auschwitz. If you know what that is, Canada is considered a rich country then. And so all the merchandise, all the stuff, all the clothes, the jewelry, the money they stole from the Jews, what they had in the cattle cars. The women working in the Canada section of the camp sorted through that as the Nazis were stealing it. And Grace actually took my mother to visit her at one point in the camp. Now, so we go through that. I mean, we don't go through that. She goes through that. I'm not even born yet. I'm born years later. Then comes 1956, end of 56, beginning of 57, the Hungarian Revolution. And my mother says that we're going on in the middle of the night. She says, we're going on an adventure. You can bring one toy. So I have two favorite toys. I have a streetcar that I really like, a wooden streetcar, and a mandolin. Which one am I going to take? Well, the mandolin, I mean, the streetcar is just a piece of wood. It doesn't really do much, but the mandolin, I can play the mandolin. So we are crossing the border in the middle of the night across a landmine-strewn minefield, right? There's barbed wire everywhere. There's Russian soldiers with guns everywhere. We are hiring a guard to take us across. He's the one who planted the landmines. He knows where the landmines are, so he's going to take us around the landmines so we don't get blown up. In the middle of it, he gets tired, right? And he wants more money. I decide that'd be nice for me to play my mandolin. He takes the mandolin out of my hand, smashes it over my head, thus ending my musical career. Of course, they didn't want the Russians to hear us, because if they heard anything, we'd be shot. So that was the end of my musical career. And the guide got tired later on, took even more money. By the time we arrived on Austrian territory, we arrived without one red cent, nothing. The guide had taken all of it. So we arrive in Canada. We come by a rickety plane through Iceland and Greenland and Moncton, and we're in Montreal. And we go on Sherbrooke, and I see McGill Neurotic Gates. I don't know what that is. I said, what is that? They said, it's a school for older kids. I said, when I'm an older kid, I want to go there. And I did go there. But what was my life like as a kid when we first got here and I didn't speak a word of English? It's a cold winter day, and my mother chimes in and she tells me, Tommy, you're not going to school today. Why not? It's too cold. What do you mean it's too cold? All the other kids are going to school. Why can't I go to school? Why are the other kids? Why are their parents letting them go to school? Because Canadians don't love their children. That's what she tells me. And of course, I believe it. As a kid, coming to Montreal, it's winter, it's snow. I want to go skating. I want to play hockey like my other friends. So my father, very nice guy. I ask him for skates. He buys me the skates. I have the skates, no problem. I've got the skates. My mother said, go ahead. He will go skating. He will fall. He will hurt his head. He'll crack his skull. The skull, the bone will open, and the brain and the blood will go into the eyes. The red liquid, the blood will soak the eyes. And as she's doing all of this, I'm like absolutely terrified. There's no way that I'm going skating. As a result, to this day, I do not know how to skate. I do not know how to drive a car. I do not have a driver's license. I do not know how to ride a bicycle. All these things, way too dangerous. I had to be protected from all of this. My first day at class, I don't speak a word of English. Teacher's talking. I don't know what she's saying. Everybody has paper and pencil. She's saying something and people are doing something. But I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what to do. So I look over it next to me and I see a girl picking up her pen and she's writing something in the upper right hand of the piece of paper she has. She's writing her Marie. So I said, okay, I have a piece of paper and I have a pencil. I take my pencil and I go to the right hand side. Now I understand what it's all about. I go to the right hand side of the paper and I write Marie. I had no idea it was her name. So that's what I wrote. So the teacher got 2 papers from Marie and none from Tommy. Again, an example of overprotection. I won a scholarship at Northmount High School, $10 worth of books at Eaton's. So my friend Howard also won $10 worth of books at Eaton's, and his mother takes us to Eaton's to pick up the books. We're coming home, and what do we hear on CJD? That Tommy Schnurmacher has been missing for 3 days. And my friend's mother says, where have you been for 3 days? I said, at home. What about during the day? I said, at school. And at night, I said, I go home. So she takes me up to my place, and my mother opens the door and says, oh, thank God he's alive. And Mrs. Carroll, my friend's mother, says, why did you tell the police that he was missing for 3 days? You think if I tell them that he's missing for an hour and a half, they will go look for him? So again, part of the unbelievable overprotection. The book contains stuff about my father too. There's an interesting story. When I was a kid, I asked my father for money to buy the Beatle album, Beatlemania, and he said, you have an allowance, take it out of your allowance. I said, Daddy, I spent my allowance already. Could I please have it? He said, wait till next week. I said, no, please, I'd like it right now. He's so sweet. He's such a kind guy. Gives me the money, I buy the Beatle album. Fast forward like 40 years later, my father's passed away. He's in the, and I'm visiting his matseva in the cemetery. And whenever I spend time with my father, again, being overprotective, I'd always say in Hungarian, Daddy, okay, Vaj, which means, Daddy, are you okay? Are you okay? And he'd say yes. And then 10 minutes later, I'd ask him again, are you okay? Are you okay? So I'm at the cemetery, and he's not around anymore, but I'm looking at the stone, and I'm saying, Daddy, are you okay? And as I ask the question, all of a sudden, what do I hear in the cemetery in Dollard? Beatlemania, a song from Beatlemania, not just one song, the entire album, song after song after song, the whole album, Beatlemania. Now, what's going on? Pretty weird. Now, it's the summer. There's a swimming pool just behind the cemetery in Dollard. There was a beach party, and they're playing music. They happened to be playing Beatlemania. But the fact that they were playing specifically that album, the whole album, right after I said, Daddy, okay, Vaj, I thought that was a very special situation indeed. Now, I lobbied as a kid. I used to read a lot at the Jewish Public Library. I can tell you the story about that later, perhaps. I lobbied for my mom to take me to New York City. I love New York City today. I loved it then. I asked her to take me to New York City. And we went to New York City. When we arrived there, she says, we have to go right home. We have to go back. War has broken out. I said, no, war has broken out. We are going to stay here. It took me all this time to get you here. Our deal was for every 7 dress shops I went to, I got to go to 1 museum. So most parents think, what can we do to entertain the kids? Not my mom. She wanted to go buy dresses because she's on 34th Street. There were stores that all had one sign in the window. Dresses, $5. We're walking along 7th Avenue towards 42nd Street, where we stayed at the National Hotel for $10 a night. And as we're going and schlepping the luggage, and I don't mean on wheels, I mean schlepping the luggage, my mother sees a store. She sees a store that sells only bras. She's never seen anything like that. Told me, wait outside. I want to go check this store. She goes into the store. I wait outside patiently. She comes out with a plastic bag. She's got her bra. We're going to the hotel. She's so excited, runs into the bathroom, tries on the bra, comes out, doesn't like it. Doesn't fit. Tommy, please take back the bra. It doesn't fit. I said, I don't know if they'll take back a bra. You can do it. So I go find the store. I'm 14. I've never been there before. I find the store. I walk in. I said, I'd like to return this brassiere, please. My mother just brought it. I'm sorry, kid. We don't take brassieres back. Are you the owner? Yes, I'm the owner. How long has this store been here, sir? We've been here 25 years, and I've been the owner for 25 years. So I said, in the 25 years that you have been the owner of the store, how often has a 14-year-old kid come in asking to return his mother's bra? So the guy smiles and laughs. He says, okay, here's your money, and got the money back. So I did that for Mom. I took her to Los Angeles. I took her to the Academy Awards. Took her to the Academy Awards. And I had a pass for the Academy Awards. And my friend Denny Arar, who worked for Associated Press at the time, she had a pass. And she said, you know, Tommy, I can give you my pass. I'm only there to cover the arrivals. Once it gets going, there's another reporter covering it, and your mother can have my pass. Great. I've got a pass. Mom's got a pass. How exciting. We're watching the Academy Awards in Hollywood. All of a sudden, Denny comes back and she says, oh, I'm so sorry. The guy who's supposed to cover the rest of the event, he called in sick. I have to cover it. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to ask for the pass back. Well, it's her pass. What can I do, right? I give her back the pass. So what I do is I have my pass, and I occasionally take it off. I put it on her. Then I take it off her. I put it back on me, the pass. Then a 6'4" LA cop comes over, looks at her, looks at me, and says, okay, which one of you two is Tommy Schnurmacher? And my mother says, oh, officer, I am. He is Tommy Schnurmacher. I am his mother. I don't have a pass. I'm sorry. I will walk home alone by myself in the dangerous Los Angeles, where they kill you and rape you. But don't worry. I will take care of myself. I will manage. And needless to say, he's charmed beyond belief. Apps thinks she's so charming, puts his hand around her, and we're escorted over to where we can watch the arrivals. That's Mom in LA. The reporters are there, and we're asking questions. Robert Redford won for Ordinary People, Best Director, Best Film. And all the press there, get this, international press, they're afraid to ask Robert Redford any questions because he's such a big star at the time. So who asked the first question? A little short Hungarian lady in the front row. My mom. Excuse me, Mr. Redford. Now that you have won the Oscar, are you going to run for president? And they loved it. It was very funny. He thought her question was charming. I also took Mom to the Cannes Film Festival. I took her to the Cannes Film Festival, and I took her to a beautiful restaurant, the Moulin de Mougins. She couldn't understand why we're going to a restaurant that we have to take a cab to see. Why can't we just go to a restaurant nearby? And I said, no. We're going to this restaurant because it's very, very, very special. It's a very special restaurant. So we get there, and we see Omar Sharif at one of the tables. And my mother recognizes him. I said, oh, that's Omar Sharif. I said, Anu, you can't go over there. You can't go bother. You can't walk over there. You can't go bother the celebrities. That's not right. It's unacceptable. You can't do that. As I'm explaining this to her, right, I'm explaining it to her back because she's already gotten up and she's walking towards his table. I can't even look. I'm looking in the other direction. I'm totally freaked out. I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. What are they going to do? Are they going to throw her out? I don't know what they're going to do. So I look over there slowly. What do I see? Is she being thrown out? No. Omar Sharif is getting up from his table. He's walking over to another table, taking a chair, bringing it over, and she's sitting down with Omar Sharif and his party. That's not all. There's more. The next thing, I look back a minute later, Omar Sharif's hand is in Mom's hand, and she's doing like this. What is she doing? She's reading his palm. Now, what's intriguing about this is she doesn't know anything about palm reading. Had no clue. Just made that up just to be fun and charming. Now, when we went to the casino in Cannes, and I told her, Anu, when we're home and we play blackjack with Daddy and you cheat, we think it's cute. We think it's just phenomenal and it's fun. Here, if you cheat here at the municipal casino in Cannes, the French police will not find it so amusing, and you will go to a French jail. You don't want to do that. So please, no cheating. And she didn't. She was fine. Now, but I took her once. I don't know how many of you have ever been to the casino. And if you understand the rules of blackjack, you'll appreciate this. quick little short story. With the blackjack table, the goal is get as close to 21 without going over. Table of 7, people are putting out $25, $50, quite a lot of money on the table. I'm number 6, mom's number 7. People are doing, they've got whatever hand they have. And then it comes to mom's turn, and mom has a 10 and a 7. She's got 17. So of course on the 17, you stay. You're not going to ask for another card. Dealer says, "Would you like another card?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "What do you mean, yes? You're not supposed to take another card." Everybody at the table says, "You're not supposed to take another card." "I want another card." "Are you sure you want another card?" "Yes." The dealer gives her a card. It's a 4. Her card is a 4. She now is 21. But now everyone's looking, what's the dealer going to have? The dealer flips open the card he had underneath. It was a 10. His next card is also a 10. So now he has 20. Mom has beaten him. But the dealer has beaten everybody else at the table. Had mom done what everybody expected her to do and just stay on 17, the dealer would have a 10 plus a 4 plus 10, 24. He would have gone over and everybody would have won. So I told her we have to get out of this casino quickly, and we did. Later on in life, when she was at the Jewish elder care, one wonderful thing, whenever I go visit her, and I'd visit her every Friday and every Sunday and dance for her and just keep her company, and she would always tell me at the end all the time, "Have a good life. Have a good life," which was a very important message that she gave to me, and that really meant a lot to me. Now, I'm going to read a quick selection from the book, Makeup Tips from Auschwitz, How Vanity Saved My Mother's Life. You can get the kids or the Einekloch to order it for you online. This chapter is called The Last of the Hungarians. After mom had a regular checkup, her doctor suggested I might want to take her to the geriatric clinic for some tests. Why on earth would I want to take her to some geriatric clinic? She's not that old. She's certainly not geriatric. The doctor looked at me the way B. Arthur used to look at Betty White. "I figured you were around 60, and since she's your mother, I jumped to the radical conclusion she's probably a bit older than you are." Everyone's a comedian. We left his office, but I did, however, decide to take mom to that clinic. Not right away, you understand, but a year later. After having her pulse checked and blood pressure measured, mom was required to answer some questions. "Do you know who is the Prime Minister of Canada?" "Yes, I do." "Who is he?" "Stephen Harper, of course. You're a doctor and you don't know who is the Prime Minister? Maybe you're not a good doctor." "I do know. I'm asking you these questions, madam, to see how good your memory is." "My memory is excellent. I still remember going to Auschwitz where they shaved off my hair and gave me a tattoo. What do you remember?" This is not going well. I figured I better do something to distract mom. "Maybe after this appointment, mom, we can go shopping. Do you want to go shopping?" "Yes, but first we have to finish with this doctor who has a bad memory." "Just a few more minutes, we're done, madam. Here's a piece of paper and a pencil. Just write down a full sentence, any sentence that you like. Take your time." Mom took the pencil, paused, looked at me, and wrote something on the paper and handed it to the doctor. "Your mother had no problem writing a sentence." "What did she write?" "I love my son." After the appointment, the doctor told me my mother was fine. She just had a mild case of dementia. Nothing to worry about. What a quack. How could this man have mentioned my mother and the D word in the same sentence? Before I hired her living caregiver, there are quite a few I'd hired on a part-time basis, some more successful than others. Mom told one bossy caregiver she really didn't like that she should find other employment. "I'm sure they would pay you big money to work in that circus and you get to travel. Why be stuck in Montreal with me?" Most of the help that I hired, most of them were from the Philippines. One morning, however, I bumped into a kind, smiling gentleman who'd been good friends with my dad, and he ran an agency that provided caregivers on a part-time basis, and he told me about Iboya, who had just arrived from the Hungarian countryside. She spoke very little English, but she was strong, not too old, and apparently a great cook. She was ready to show up the very next day, which was a Saturday. I didn't even have a chance to really interview her. She arrived at the building just as I was leaving for shul. I introduced myself and told her I was sure that she and my mother would get along very well. That morning, my prayers were more intense than usual, as I repeatedly asked the master of the universe to intervene to make sure everything worked out well with Mom and Iboya. My prayers went unanswered. I arrived home to see Mom sitting on the lobby couch, scowling at Iboya with a look that bordered on loathing. Good Shabbos on you. How are you? Borzasto. I will feel much better when this kurva goes home. Tell her to go home. She said all this while glaring at Iboya, who looked like she was no longer surprised at being called a kurva. I make your mother nice lunch and she love it. I didn't love it. I did not have lunch. Look at her. Look at those sagging breasts, so big. If she leans over, they fall into the soup. Who has breasts so large? She looks like a cow from Pasto. Tell her to go home. Tell her to go to hell. Iboya, would you like to take a break? Sure. She left and Mom thanked me for getting rid of her. I hope she never comes back. She has to come back. Somebody has to stay with you tonight. They do? Yes, they do. You will be safe and I'll be less nervous. Let me take you upstairs. You can have a nap and Iboya will be back later. I'm exhausted. I want to rest. See you tomorrow. I was contentedly dreaming when suddenly awakened by a frantic banging on the door. It was Mom. 3 hours and the kurva is still not back. Iboya didn't come back? No. She was supposed to come back. I was told she was very reliable. I hope she's all right. I'm going to call the agency later tonight to find out what happened. Maybe she had an accident. She's too fat to have an accident. Later, I did catch up with Iboya. Why didn't you come back from your break? I did come back. Your mother say I am fired. I try to open door. She starts screaming. She throw my purse in hallway. She slammed the door. She say if I knock again, she call RCMP and say I am spy. I was aghast. I told her it's your son who hired me. She told me, then go to his house and take care of him. Iboya was the last of the Hungarians. Now, before we get to the questions, there's one quick little story I want to share. This is when my parents lived in a duplex on Clanranald. They lived downstairs and they had tenants upstairs. One day the phone rings and it's the tenant. Mr. Schnurmacher, there's no heat. Move to Florida, my mother's sister, and hangs up. The tenant calls back. The phone rings again. I'm serious, there is no heat. Well, don't walk around naked like a tsatskeler and close the window. Still not over. The tenant, called the police. The police arrive. They knock on the door. My mother goes to the door. Yes. Is this Mr. Schnurmacher? Yes. Well, Mr. Schnurmacher, we have a complaint. What's the complaint? Your tenant says there's no heat. What are you? The heat police. Go catch a crook. My father perked up and asked, who was that? And my mother answered, somebody selling chocolate. Now, one quick thing. I told this story that you just heard at the Shar Shemayim about 10 years ago, this tenant story. And somebody in the building where we live, a Hungarian lady, she'd heard me tell this story. She'd heard me tell this story, not at Shar Shemayim, at another place. She'd heard me tell this story, and she said that why did I say a story that that my mother wouldn't like, that didn't reflect well on my mother. Well, one day when I was invited about 10 years ago, I think it was a Sunday lunch, if I remember correctly, at the Shar, and I came with my mother, and I told this story with mom sitting there at my table. Was she insulted? Was she hurt by the story? No one in the room loved the story, appreciated the story more than she did, and she was applauding wildly about this story about her. So we had a strong, unbelievably strong connection then. And let me tell you something, it's very important. Even though she's no longer here, she's no longer with me, the connection, the love is unbroken. It remains the same. She's on another plane, true, but the connection, the love remains unbroken. And I'm sure in some manner, in some way, she's here enjoying the presentation with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tommy. I'm sure your mother is beaming down at you, laughing along with their jokes, as we all are. This is the point in our evening where we'll open it up for Q&A. So feel free to type into the Q&A chat any of your questions that you may have. And we'll start with the one about your parents' overprotectiveness. The question is, what impact did it have that your parents were extremely overprotective? I guess we heard about how you didn't learn to skate or drive a car, but is there anything else that you can say about that?
Yes, it does have an impact, and it's a negative. I have to say, it's a negative impact because you become fearful, you become afraid. During the pandemic, for instance, I was planning to go to Venice and change my mind. I had to change my mind at the last moment. Somebody called and said, it's really bad in Italy, around Veneto. And I said, well, that's nowhere near Venice. I'm going to Venice. And they said, what are you talking about? Venice is Veneto. So I had to cancel it, which was very difficult because I had a beautiful Airbnb booked. I had a fantastic Airbnb booked there. And I wanted to go somewhere. So I went to New York. And when I was in New York, and there were no cases in New York at the time, I thought to myself, this is part of being overprotective. No cases in New York. Kennedy Airport, it takes 15 minutes to drive past Kennedy Airport. That enormous airport with planes arriving from all over the planet, and not one of the people getting off any of those planes have COVID, that's impossible. So I got worried. I told friends here to stock up on toilet paper and tuna. I still had some left over from Y2K. Stock up on toilet paper and tuna. And I told a friend, the world is never going to be the same in a few weeks. You're crazy. You're crazy. What are you talking about? And so being overprotective, you learn to catastrophize. Somebody's half an hour late doesn't mean they stopped to talk to somebody, means they were killed. They were run over. They had a heart attack. You think of the worst, and you have to work with psychologists to train yourself not to jump to those most negative conclusions. But on the other hand, that's the negative part. The other part of the overprotective is you feel very loved. I feel very loved in my home. The notion of getting a note from the teacher, I didn't understand what that meant. You get a note from your parents to do something. Of course my mother's going to sign any note I ask her for. Why are they making out that to be an obstacle? It's not an obstacle. My mother would write notes for the other kids. I once talked to Rabbi Feingold. I once was talking in class, and the teacher said, I have to write out, I must not talk in class 500 times. Those were the days when they give lines as a punishment. You know what happened when I got home? My mother thought that was unfair, and she wrote out, I must not talk in class 500 times, and then signed it with her signature. I bring it in the 10 or 15 pages to the teacher, and the teacher looks at it. She says, this isn't did you do this? I said, no, my mother did it. That's not the point of the exercise. You were the one talking in class. You're the one asked to be punished. You have to write it. So I went to tell my mother, you know what my mother did? After that, again, the sense of feeling loved. She wrote it out again in childish handwriting 500 times. So she sided with me against the teacher all the time, no matter whether I was right or wrong. So in a way, again, there's the negative of that, but you certainly feel valued and loved. That's the positive part of it.
Absolutely. There's another couple of questions coming in. One is, how long did it take you to write this book?
It took about 30 years. Actually, it took thinking about it for 30 years, but I finally got down to it. It took about a year, and I had to give myself a deadline. I can't work without a deadline. For this Zoom call, it was a specific time, specific place. I'll show up, no problem. But if you say, let's do it one day, I can't. So what I did is I made a vow to do it on Facebook a certain amount each day, and that's how I got the book done.
Finally got it out of your head and out into the world.
Onto paper. And then if anybody's thinking of writing anything, what stops most people from writing is that they think it's not going to be good. Of course, it's not going to be good when you first put it down. When a sculptor brings down the clay, it doesn't look like it's a lump of clay. You've got to work at it, then it gets better. So you've got to shut up your inner editor. Don't correct. Don't change anything. Get it out there, get it out there, get it out there. Then look it over, add to it, subtract from it.
So here's another question about your mom. Did she ever used to call into your radio show?
Yes.
And
Julia.
if so, what did that look like?
Well, first of all, it would make me nervous when she'd call it. She wouldn't do it often.
Well, she was unpredictable on the air, right?
Yes, you never know what she would say. Her name, she used the name Julia. She'd call, and she. One of the things I did, you just brought back this memory. Wow. She used to write letters to the editor, to the Gazette, and even in the Montreal Star. And of course, her English wasn't good, and the grammar and the spelling were completely off. So she'd ask me to edit it. I'd have to fight for every single change because I want to say it like this. I said, I know, but that's not English. So it was very difficult to do, but she was very glad when the stuff got printed. And in terms of unpredictability, she didn't like Pierre Trudeau. She didn't like the Liberals and didn't like Pierre Trudeau. And I called her once. I was in Quebec City. I'd been attending a movie premiere. There was Pierre Trudeau with Denise Filiatro, the actress, on one side of him and me on the other. So I called home. My father answers the phone. Can I speak to Mommy? She doesn't want to speak to you. What do you mean she doesn't want to speak to me? She says, any son of hers who's walking beside Pierre Trudeau, she's furious with you, doesn't want to talk to you. So wait.
She's ready to disown you.
That's how angry she is at him, right? But wait. I took her to an event where Pierre Trudeau was the guest of honor. And I told her, you have to, like I told the casino, you have to behave. You can't do anything. God forbid you lunge at him or anything like that. You can't do anything like that. Pierre Trudeau makes a beeline for her. He's got a rose. He hands her the rose. She melts. How charming, etc., etc. So again, like the unpredictability of it, which made her so exciting and so charming.
Colorful, absolutely.
Let me tell you something. Colorful is a great way to put it. And I can tell you one thing, in terms of my parents' marriage, my father never had a dull moment. That's for sure. He might have been annoyed or upset occasionally, but he never had a dull moment.
Never bored, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There are a few more questions coming in.
Sure, no problem.
The question here is, did your mother get to see the book?
Well, my mother, where I'm sitting right now, this is where I wrote the book, where I typed the book. She'd tell me, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing a book. She said, about what? About you? I said, oh, come on. And so I would tell her and I would read it. And after when she had a bit of dementia, she would talk to herself a bit and memories and so on. I would listen to her talk and I'd be like a stenographer. I'd just take down everything she said. And I didn't have so she knew I was writing a book about her. I didn't have the ending for the book, right? I didn't have it. And you'll have to read the book to see. She provided the ending for the book.
So there are a couple questions just about you. First of all, about your hat. Is
Yes.
your hat part of your persona? What can you say about headgear? And I'm going to add glasses wear to that to. Can you say
Okay,
anything about
well,
your personal style?
oh, okay, sure, great. Yes, I love hats, and I love the fact that I can wear this till Labor Day, right? And then after Labor Day, I can't wear white anymore. Um, the glasses, I had ordinary, very ordinary glasses, you know, brown, black, tortoiseshell, etc. Just for the fun of it, I ordered these glasses from Zenny. They had a really inexpensive pair that were turquoise. I said, how crazy that is. That's just for the fun of it. I'll wear
Why
those.
not?
So when I did a presentation to a synagogue in Washington, D.C., I said, you know, as we were getting ready for the presentation, I said, you know what, ladies, you can choose which glasses you would prefer. So I tried on the 3 or 4. They all voted for this one. And I did this at another synagogue. They all voted for this one again. So then I kept
So
this one.
now you just assumed that that's what people at
I
synagogue
assume
events
that
want to see.
it happens in many synagogues. They prefer it to the Torah show. The one, I think it was one lady was outvoted. She wanted a more conservative one. But I love the fedoras and hats, and I've been wearing them for like quite a few years already, even back when I was at CJD as well.
Um, there's a question about COVID and how that has affected your promotion of the book. There's a question about an audio book. Anything that you
Yes,
can
yes.
say about this time, this strange time that we're in relation to when this book came out, and what that
Okay, all
means
right.
to you.
Okay, well, I was extremely lucky. I mean, wasn't lucky. It was from God. It was an absolute gift from God. Um, I was interviewing people about early retirement. I was already in my early 60s, so of course early retirement was ridiculous. It was ridiculous to call it early retirement, but in my mind that's what it was. And I had a segment on my show from 11:30 to 12 called "Get Me Out of Here," where I interviewed travel bloggers. So I think the management could have gotten a hint that, you know, like had it. 20 years of doing a talk, so there's nothing that I haven't done. And somebody asked, one synagogue asked me if I wanted to talk about the language law as a topic. I said, no, I said, I'd rather have a root canal. I said, no, I can't do that anymore. So when it came to retirement, I did the early retirement. And the CJD threw me a lovely party. And thank God that I did. I want to talk in terms of timing about COVID. I retired. I got a chance to go to New York and San Diego and visit friends and go on a Mediterranean cruise and go to Israel and go to Ireland, Israel, and Italy. And those are just the countries with the I that start with I. And what
You're trying to
happened
make it through the
after
whole alphabet.
alphabet? So I got to do all that. And then what happened is, you know, my sister, Cindy Alshon, passed away. And within 10 months, my mother passed away. So again, I was in retirement, and had she been alive for COVID, I can tell you honestly, Rabbi, I would have had to have been institutionalized. I'm not exaggerating. If I would not be able to know how she's doing, if I couldn't check, or if I checked, the security guards would get me, or if I went and maybe I was the one making her sick, that would drive me to madness. It would have driven me to madness. So I was very lucky that the book was launched in August of 2019. I had a number of book launches in Montreal, at downtown, at the Paragraph, at Indigo on the West Island, at that lovely store on Queen Mary, Bibliophile on Queen Mary. I was invited to the Vancouver Jewish Book Festival in Vancouver. I did that. I did a presentation for the CJD audience in February of last year, literally a couple of weeks before the world shut down. And then afterwards, I turned, I guess, lemons into lemonade. I did presentations at shows not only in Montreal, but in Ottawa and Toronto, and I did Washington and Durham, North Carolina, and Boston, in a number of synagogues, which I would never have been able to do if not for COVID. So I'm still promoting the book in that sense, and getting to meet a lot of people I would never have met. Being my age and retired, not having financial worries, puts me in a sweeter spot than many other people who are going through like unbelievable anguish going through this imprisonment, and how difficult it is. And I certainly understand the frustration of so many people and what they're going through. But again, like there's negatives and positives from the overprotection. Part of the experience of being second gen is, I think, is this a bad situation right now for me? Yes. Can I go to Chops for dinner? No. Can I go have a martini with my friends? Can I even go over to my friends? No, I can't do that. I can't do this. Can't do this. Can't do it. Can't travel. Oh yeah, that's terrible. How does that compare to what our parents went through? Nothing. Picnic. Nothing. We have a phone, electricity, Zoom, Netflix, ordering food, mail order, Costco, Indigo, Amazon. What, like,
right? We're doing okay relatively.
Yeah, like in terms of complaining. What we are now to compare to what we had 3 years ago, yes, I get it. In terms of horrific situations, we should count our blessings. Like I said, it's easier to say if you're retired and not worried about losing your business, or knowing if you're able to, having enough money.
Right, you're in a position to count your blessings.
Right. But I understand. But also, thank God that in Canada, the difference between Canada and the United States, they care about. I mean, there's a certain amount of care from the government that they don't leave people without a penny. They're not going to let their people starve to death, which in the United States, they don't want to give them that to really fight to get any money to the people. So we're fortunate in that respect. In terms of the vaccine rollout, that's
right.
Another story.
No comments, right?
Exactly.
I have one final question for you. Now that you've written the book, if you could imagine the movie version of this book, who is the actress who would play Mother?
Who would play Mother? What's her name? Rachel Brosnahan, the one from The Amazing Mrs. Maisel?
Amazing. With her whole wardrobe, right?
Yes. I think she would be fine. And I'd also want some of the crowd. I want some of the people from Shtisel, because I'm obsessed with Shtisel, so much so. Did you see Shtisel yourself?
Yes. I still haven't finished the last season, the new season.
No
spoilers.
No spoilers. One of the early episodes, there's the grandmother in her Tillim. She's praying for her grandchildren, but also for some of the soap opera characters. I completely empathize. Before I go to bed, you think about my friend, and there's a couple of the characters I worry about. Can you believe it? On Shtisel, as if they were real.
I get very involved, hyper involved, because they're so real. They're so authentic. They're people that we know.
Yes,
anyone.
And you know why that is? It's not per accident. In Israel, the way they make films, instead of spending a lot of money on a pilot, they put a lot of time and effort into the story, the plot and the story is going to be great. And the character, they build and build and build the character to make the character so absolutely real. That's why it works. They're not cardboard characters. They're so three-dimensional. You think they really exist.
Right. So that's a perfect place to end. Unfortunately, our time is up.
Thank you.
But it's my honor to thank you on behalf of the congregation. And just as you described, the way that the storytelling can bring a character to life and make it multidimensional, you've brought us your story and your mother. You've shared your mother's dignity and her intense love for you and desire to protect you and overprotect you. You've shared with us her charm, her hilarious chutzpah, and all with that delightful Hungarian accent, which just makes those stories that much more precious, right? Manipulating the security guard or the celebrities. Yeah. And I just want to end by thinking about, that first story you shared, where your mom is arranging the seats at the Stiebel for the high holidays.
Yes.
And someone wants to come just for Yisker. And of course, it's a very real experience. And why would anyone care to come just for Yisker is because that's how we feel about those that we love and those that we want to remember. That nothing can get in the way of that connection and that love, as you described. And I can't help but note that tonight begins Yom HaZikaron. the Day of Remembrance. Memorial Day in Israel is we're remembering the fallen soldiers. And so much of Yom HaZikaron in Israel is tied up with, you know, moving right into the joy and celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut, of Israel Independence Day. You know, you've brought us also to a place where suffering and joy can commingle, where laughter and tears, as Natasha said, are part of the same story. And so thank you for that. Thank you for teaching us deeply how to remember on this very special night.
Thank you.
So thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And please return next week when we'll hear from Margalit Fox here at Tuesday Night Learning. Erev Tov, have a good evening.